What's up everyone, Pierre from Into Fly Fishing, and in this video we'll be looking at the 5 main reasons why you keep losing fish. Now, some people might call me an experienced angler or guide, but one thing that I know for certain is that I'm an absolute expert at losing fish. And if there's one person that can really teach you about losing fish and showing you all the mechanics behind losing fish, it's really me. I've made all the mistakes in the book, and I've really put in a lot of time and effort at becoming an expert at losing fish. The only other person in the world that I know of that loses more fish on a consistent basis than me is Chris, our videographer. Now, I've really become an expert at losing fish, and I thought that it would be a good idea to share all this knowledge of mine with you so that you don't have to keep losing fish. So let's dive in. So we're going to start off this list in the reverse order, and we're going to end off with the main reason why I think you keep losing fish. So for number 5, we have the incorrect tippet for the application. Let's exaggerate this a bit to illustrate the point. You won't fish 5x fluorocarbon tippet to a giant trevally, and you won't fish 100-pound monofilament leader to a trout. It just wouldn't work, and it just doesn't make sense. So you need to select the tippet, the breaking strain of the tippet specifically, to the intended application. In short, if you're using too light tippet, you will break the fish off, but if you're using too thick tippet, the tippet will either not go through the hook's eye, or the fish will be spooked and they will just refuse the fly. Let's focus on trout and similar freshwater species for the purpose of this video. There's no hard and fast rule, like a rule in the Bible or something that says you can't use this, you can't use this for a fish, but this is what I use. For rod weights between 1 and 3 weight, even including Euro nymphing rods, I use 5 to 7x. It just allows you to really become undetectable for the fish if you go to 7x, and the rods are light enough so that they don't snap off the light tippet. For rods between 3 and 5 weight, or 4 and 5 weight, I go from 5x, I'll fish 5x, 4x and 3x. In still waters, I'll go to 3x if you start fishing streamers, or in larger rivers, you can fish streamers with 3x. And then for larger rods, 6, 7, or 8 weight, I'll go 3x, 2x, 1x, and even 0x if you're really fishing to larger fish. The number 4 reason why I think you keep losing fish goes hand in hand with that tippet selection, and that is that I think people generally set too hard. If you're using sharp hooks on most freshwater species, a short and firm little set is just absolutely perfect. Remember, you're not trying to set a massive 10-0 hook into a great white's jaw. It's really not necessary. You will keep breaking off. A really short and dedicated set will absolutely do the job. The more you fish and the more time you spend with your rig, the more comfortable you'll become and confident in your tippet or your complete leader and how hard you can set. For instance, I know exactly if I have my 10-foot 3-weight Nymph Maniac in my hand, I can set quite hard because it's a long and very sort of forgiving rod, but I can't set in the same way if I use light tippet on a 6-weight. It'll just simply break off. So spend as much time as you can on the water with your rig, and then you'll build confidence and you'll get to know it very well. One of the biggest reasons why inexperienced anglers keep losing fish is tension. Especially when you're fishing barbless hooks, like I really recommend most anglers fish, or all anglers fish with barbless hooks. The tension and the bend in your rod is the only thing that keeps that fish connected to you. If you lose tension, it's only a matter of time, especially with bigger fish that just have a little bit more common sense. They just go and they shake their head once or twice, and that instant on and off of tension just makes the fly pop out and you lose that fish. If you use the correct tippet for the application and your knots are tied well, don't be scared to apply quite a lot of pressure and put a bend in that rod. It's that bend that absorbs all of the shocks that the fish produces when it shakes its head and runs up and down the river. It's this that keeps the fish connected to you. Also, the more tension you apply, the quicker the fight will be over and the better it is for the fish. Number 2 on my list of why you keep losing fish is blunt hooks. Man, I don't hear enough people speak about this. How many times have you had a fish eat your fly? Like you Uranymph, the fish eats your fly, it's on, you have a good bend, you really keep tension, and just as the fish turns, choop, out. Now, if it happens once or twice, that's fine. It might just have just caught the fish in the scissors or in the top drawer, and it just managed to pull out under tension. But if this keeps happening consistently, fish after fish, you really need to start looking if your hooks aren't blunt. Check the very smallest part of the hook point, the very tip. Sometimes when you look at the hook, you think, oh, it's sharp, but once you really zoom in, you'll see there's just a slight kink, and it's this that prevents the hook to really penetrate into the fish's jaw. Especially after you've hooked to the bottom while Uranymph or cast into a branch or anything like that, make sure to check those hooks. And if you do this habit, if you get into this habit of checking it, I assure you, you'll start losing a lot less fish. So now, the number one reason why I think you keep losing fish is knots. I spend a lot of time on rivers, not only guiding, because when I'm guiding, I tie my knots or tie the knots for the clients, but I spend a lot of time with friends on the water and with family. And it's really crazy to see how little effort or knowledge people put in to knots. Now, I won't consider myself as a knot tying expert at all. I just have a handful of knots, maybe 3 or 4 that I use in freshwater and 3 and 4 in saltwater, and I stick to these. I stick to these knots that makes a great knot. If I tie a standard clench knot and if my wife ties a standard clench knot, there's a great difference. So it's just something that you need to get used to and practice, and this is what makes knots good or bad, or whether they hold or if they slip or fail. You need to select your knots and practice them as much as possible, and don't use a knot on the river if you're not really confident and haven't practiced it at home. If you know a knot, you don't even need to test it. You simply make it, and by the way you see the knot seat, you know this is going to hold or not. And if it sort of deviates from what you know it should look like, there's a good chance that it'll break off. Like they say, if you can't tie knots, tie lots. Losing a fish is never a great experience to digest, especially if it's a really good, healthy or large specimen. Sometimes it's just unlucky, the fish just pulls, the hook isn't seated correctly, or the fish just outruns you or something like that, and you lose the fish. But it's really sad to lose fish if it's something really small that's actually in your control. I believe that if you concentrate on these 5 things that we mentioned now, it will greatly improve your catch rate. If you found this video helpful and insightful, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications. Then we can let you know as soon as we release any future videos like this. Until next time, cheers.